How does this reflect in park discipline judging, guys?
In order to judge, park skating, you take everything into account. The way someone stands on a board. With the street stuff, it's like you hit the ledge and then you have flat ground to go and then into the next thing. Where realistically, the park, you're always doing this, and you're always trying to find speed, slow down if you have to. So you really get the full picture of how someone has learned how to skate and how good they are. It's like if you're a skateboarder and you're driving down the street and you look and you see someone like ollie up a curb, you kind of know how good that person is at skateboarding just by that, or just by how they push. And park skating's a lot like that too. While they're linking into what their best final trick or whatever right before the buzzer, we judge how they stand on their skateboard. It's everything, and that's the full picture of the length of the run.
There's a cruising component,
right?
I think there's like more than street skating. It's like these guys are pilots that are on that terrain. You know what I mean? Like
absolutely,
like motorcycle or something. It's closer to me to how they cruise and how they piloting around that terrain more than street skating.
Yeah, absolutely. And the tricks, you don't assign a certain point value to tricks. Two people can do a Smith grind completely differently. Someone can do it very badly, but or you could do it 20 blocks long. There's a lot to take into consideration during a park run.
That's
also it's a bit of
Go on, Shari.
Oh, it's just a bit of a domino effect, compared to street. It's a little bit different. Like you're saying, someone can do a short Smith grind or a long Smith grind, or they can air, and if they're sort of not landing high enough up on the transition, it's going to impact the next trick and the next trick. Whereas street, you can sort of redeem yourself quicker. With park, it's sort of, you're judging the tricks, but you've got to think the whole big picture, because that trick, if it's not executed properly, then flows on and sort of affects the rest of the run. So the judging is a little bit different to street, as in, I feel street, you can sort of redeem yourself a little bit more within that run as opposed to park.
That's the kind of the thing that I wanted to ask you, because when we talk about adaptation to the terrain, to me, when I watch it, it's very hard to find the lines where you can keep the speed to keep going and the speed you need to execute certain tricks. So being able to read it right or excel in reading the terrain kind of predetermines what can you do, and that affects the kind of overall impression that you evaluate as judges at the end, right?
Yeah, and as a result, you find it in the format of the competition, because in street skating, you can fall in your run, and then you can jump back on your board and finish your run. Where in park skating, first, it's not really a part of the format, because it's time until you fall. But even if it will be allowed for the riders to get back on their boards, that doesn't make sense, because
half the time you can't find where your board went half the time.
Exactly. First, and then you get 15 minutes to drop again, and you do one trick and it's over.
And I think that's where the skateboarding common sense as a judge is really important, because if you know skateboarding, you know where some skaters are playing it safe so they don't come off their board and they complete that run, especially with gnarly little aspects of their line or the terrain. So we know as skateboarders and judges when someone's done something risky where they could have come off and lost their run, as opposed to street skating where you can get back on. So if they've come off the board, they're done. So we know that when you're judging park and you see this line and they've done something risky where it was very, it's a gnarly line, or they've tried a gnarly trick in that spot, incorporated some flips and things like that, there's a lot more risk there of coming off their board, as opposed to someone, maybe just doing like a Smith grind there to get to the next trick. So I think having that common sense when you're judging,
it's our job to spot the safety dance. Right. And that happens too. Like if you, like you're saying, if you landed low on an air, the next trick that you were setting up for could be something completely different by the time you get to it, and you know it's not going to happen, and you just ride over a hip instead of, you know.
Yeah.
Or you change the direction of your line because it's not possible to do it anymore with that kind of speed you have.
Right. Exactly.
That's the thing that I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong. The skateboarding common sense and the experience judges has to see when they come and see the skate park, the terrain, because some lines are naturally easier and everybody takes them, and then some lines are basically trick themselves. Just to connect the tricks in the certain way in that park, it's a miracle sometimes. And seeing someone doing it, it's amazing, and the judges must be able to tell the difference.
And that's why when we look at the park, like the park that we provided or that's set up for that competition, I really love to see all those unique obstacles being hit in different ways as opposed to looking at it just like a bowl. So I think that's one of the really important factors of what separates park skating from vert, mini ramp, bowl skating is that we're not just hitting transition. We've got some little ledges and spines and things incorporated in there. So let's see them being used. We see some really good runs, like even when we look at, you know, some of those runs that we're going to evaluate later on, and quite a lot of the tricks are just, you know, lip tricks or transition tricks. But then there's a few skaters that are hitting the ledges and hitting the banks and the little rail bits that are incorporated. And for me, that's like really defining park skating and separating it from the rest.
Amazing. That's great. Anything else, guys, you would like to add? Because this is really important what you just described and use the examples for, because that's how the evaluation of the overall impression that it's scored in a park style discipline is composed of. And
I would just say that usually, like in the first, you know, practice rounds, you see the people, you know, choose the path of least resistance, and that's why one person finds a line and then the other person finds a line, they build on it, and then they change out a few tricks and then they try to add to it. But you also got to look out for the people that do something completely different right when they get there. I feel like the practice sessions can kind of be monotonous until there's that one rider that goes upstream, you know, or just figures it out completely different, and that changes
the door for everyone else.
Yeah, that changes the entire entire competition.
Very true. Very true. Okay, thank you very much, guys. This has been great hearing your experiences and tips, and I hope the viewers learned a lot. Now let's move to the next topic, and the next topic is how to prepare for judging park discipline.